What makes a golfer dangerous? Not trophies, not headlines, not applause. The most dangerous man is the one who makes another champion uncomfortable. At 55, Phil Mickelson no longer needed to impress anyone. He had won majors, lost painful Sundays, and survived an era filled with giants. He knew the difference between a great player and a hard opponent. Because some men did more than beat you. They changed your tempo. They made simple shots feel difficult. They forced you to chase moments that were never there. They made 18 holes feel longer than they should. Fans remember scorecards. Players remember feelings. They remember the name beside theirs on the pairing sheet. They remember the silence after a putt drops. They remember when confidence starts to disappear. People still debate who was the greatest of Phil's era. But that is not the real question. The real question is this: which 5 golfers did Phil Mickelson never feel comfortable facing? Before Phil Mickelson could judge the toughest men he ever faced, he first had to become one of the names others feared. He entered professional golf with a style that did not look safe. While others trusted structure, Phil trusted instinct. While others played away from danger, Phil sometimes walked straight toward it. That made him thrilling to watch and difficult to predict. Some called it reckless. Others called it genius. Often it was both. By the time his career matured, Phil was no outsider telling old stories. He was a major champion, a winner across different decades, a player who stayed relevant while eras changed around him. New stars arrived, old legends faded, equipment evolved, courses changed, and still, Phil remained in the conversation. That matters, because opinions from ordinary players are easy to dismiss. Opinions from a man who stood inside the storm carry different weight. He did not watch these rivals from a television screen. He stood beside them when galleries grew loud and fairways felt narrow. He watched their decisions under pressure. He felt what happened to a tournament when one of them caught fire. He learned which players could be challenged and which ones changed the emotional balance of an entire Sunday afternoon. Phil also understood something fans often miss. The hardest opponent is not always the most famous one. Sometimes it is the man who never blinks. Sometimes it is the man who gives you no mistakes. Sometimes it is the man who stays quiet until the leaderboard tells you it is already too late. And after everything Phil saw, 5 names stayed with him more than the rest. Number 5. Lee Westwood. Some opponents attack you. Some intimidate you. Lee Westwood did something quieter than that. He stayed there. That was the first trap. He did not need chaos. He did not need headlines. He did not need a dramatic charge on the back 9. Week after week, tournament after tournament, you could play solid golf, check the leaderboard, and see the same truth waiting for you. Westwood was near the top again. From tee to green, he built pressure the old-fashioned way. Fairways found, greens hit, mistakes kept to a minimum. Nothing looked reckless. Nothing looked emotional. It was steady, controlled, and stubbornly difficult to break. That kind of player creates a special frustration, because against some men you know chances will come. A loose swing, a bad hole, a careless mistake. Against Lee, those openings often never arrived. If you wanted distance from him, you had to create it yourself. And that is where danger begins for a player like Phil Mickelson. Phil was never built to wait forever. His instinct was to move, to create, to take a shot others would never attempt. But when a man like Westwood keeps standing beside you on the board, patience starts to feel like surrender. Safe decisions start to feel too slow. So the risk grows. A line gets taken that did not need to be taken. A pin gets attacked that should have been respected. One aggressive choice becomes 2. Suddenly, you are no longer playing the golf course. You are playing the presence of another man. That was Lee Westwood's hidden strength. He could force decisions without saying a word. He could tighten a Sunday simply by refusing to disappear. And when Phil looked up late in a tournament and saw Westwood still there, he knew one thing immediately. Nothing was going to come easy. Number 4. David Duval. There was a stretch when David Duval did not feel like another contender. He felt like the future arriving early. He was not loud. He did not need attention. There was no wasted energy in the way he moved, no performance in the way he carried himself. Then the ball left the club face, and everything became clear. The flight was pure. The strike was clean. The result kept repeating. That was the unsettling part. With some rivals, you can study flaws. You can wait for emotion to rise, for pressure to crack them, for one mistake to open the door. With Duval at his peak, there was very little to chase. He looked as if he had simplified the game into something the rest of the field had not yet understood. Around the turn of the century, his name kept climbing leaderboards with an almost cold efficiency. No drama, no visible panic, just numbers getting lower while everyone else searched for momentum. And momentum matters to players like Phil Mickelson. Phil thrived on movement, energy, and instinct. He could change a tournament with one fearless decision, but Duval created a different problem. He removed the emotional openings. There was no chaos to attack, no weakness to pressure, no sign that the moment was becoming too big. That can wear on a competitor faster than noise ever could. You start asking dangerous questions. Am I doing enough? Do I need to force something now? Why does my best feel ordinary today? Then comes the mistake. Not because the other man attacked you, but because his control pushed you into leaving your own rhythm. That is what made Duval so difficult in those years. He could make another elite player feel late to a standard already set before the round even began. And when someone does that, you remember him long after the trophies are handed out. Number 3. Vijay Singh. Some pressure arrives like thunder. Vijay Singh was different. He arrived like weather. Slowly, quietly, then suddenly, everywhere. You could finish a solid round, feel good about your position, look at the board, and see the same problem waiting again. Vijay was there. The next day, still there. Different course, same story. That repetition is dangerous. Because flashy players can be understood. They run hot, they cool off, they take risks, they give chances back. Vijay rarely offered that comfort. He did not depend on one weapon. He brought an entire game with him. Off the tee, strong. Iron play sharp. Around the greens, reliable. On the greens, good enough to punish every opening. There was no obvious weakness to circle, no soft spot to target. So the pressure begins to change shape. Against players like that, patience becomes uncomfortable. Waiting feels passive. You stop trusting the round to come to you. You start trying to create something before it is there. For Phil Mickelson, that was dangerous territory. Phil's greatness often lived in bold moments, a risky line, a towering shot, a decision only he would dare make. But Vijay could turn courage into impatience. One extra gamble, one forced birdie attempt, one swing taken a little too soon. That was often enough. What made Vijay so hard to face was not emotion, it was discipline. He played at his own pace and made others adjust to it. You could not speed him up, you could not rattle him, you could not wait for him to fade. If you wanted to beat him, you had to raise your level and hold it there longer than comfort allows. Most players could not. And even when Phil did, Vijay was usually still standing beside him. Number 2. Ernie Els. Some rivals make golf feel violent. Ernie Els made it feel unfair. Everything about him looked easier than it should have been. The swing moved like it had no effort in it. The tempo never rushed. The ball seemed to leave the club softly, then travel forever. On a game built on tension, he looked untouched by it. That can disturb another player more than anger ever will. Because golf is hard. Even the best players in the world know how fragile it feels. Timing disappears. Confidence drifts. One thought can ruin an entire afternoon. Then you look across and see Ernie moving through the same storm as if the wind belongs to him. That was the trap. Phil Mickelson was an artist by nature. He shaped shots, trusted feel, created answers in real time. But standing beside someone who made everything look simple can plant a dangerous thought in any mind. Am I doing too much? Should this be easier? Why does his game look calm, while mine feels expensive? Those questions matter. They arrive quietly, but they change decisions. A player starts searching for cleaner answers instead of trusting the instincts that brought him there. And once that happens, he is already drifting. Ernie also carried another kind of pressure. Great shots did not always move him. You could attack a flag, hear the crowd rise, feel momentum beginning to turn, and then watch him answer with something just as strong, almost without expression. No opening, no emotional crack, no sign that the moment had touched him. That steadiness can exhaust an opponent. Because against some men, effort creates separation. Against Ernie Els, there were days when effort only created fatigue. And for a player like Phil, who built greatness through imagination and fire, that may have been the strangest battle of all. Number 1. Tiger Woods. Some opponents try to beat you. Tiger Woods could change the entire day before the first shot was hit. That was the difference. When his name appeared beside yours, the tournament felt smaller and larger at the same time. Smaller because every eye seemed fixed on one group. Larger because the pressure around each hole suddenly grew heavier. The walk to the first tee felt slower. The silence before impact felt longer. Tiger did not need to speak. The atmosphere worked for him. Crowds moved with him like a tide. One putt could shake the property. One fist pump could reach players 3 fairways away. Even when he missed, nobody believed the mistake would last. That belief alone had power. And power changes decisions. Phil Mickelson knew how to create magic, but Tiger created urgency. A safe par could start feeling weak. Patience could feel late. A smart plan could be abandoned because somewhere ahead, Tiger had just made birdie from impossible range. That is how rounds are lost before the scorecard explains them. You stop playing your game. You start reacting to his. For Phil, that was the real challenge. Tiger's swing was elite. His mind was stronger, but the hardest part was the emotional gravity around him. He could pull an entire field into his pace, his energy, his story. Very few athletes in any sport have done that. And yet those battles gave Phil something valuable. They forced him to understand a brutal truth. Sometimes your best golf is real. Sometimes it is brave. Sometimes it is enough to beat almost anyone alive. Almost. Because when Tiger Woods stood on the other side, the course could feel wider for him and narrower for everyone else. When Phil Mickelson looked back at the toughest golfers he ever faced, he was not really naming 5 men. He was naming 5 different forms of pressure. Lee Westwood was the weight of a man who never disappeared. David Duval was the cold standard that arrived before others were ready. Vijay Singh was discipline with no exit door. Ernie Els was calm so complete it could make another champion question himself. Tiger Woods was gravity, the kind that pulled everything toward him. That is why these names lasted. Not because of trophies alone, not because of headlines or highlight reels. Those things fade with time. What remains are the feelings certain rivals leave behind. The tension on a tee box, the doubt before a swing, the sense that today will demand more than usual. Every great career is shaped by moments of victory, but it is also shaped by the people who made victory harder. They expose impatience, they punish ego, they reveal whether confidence is real or borrowed. They force growth that comfort never can. Phil understood that better than most. He won enough to know success. He lost enough to understand truth. And truth in sports is rarely gentle. Sometimes the men who challenge you the most do more for your legacy than the ones you defeat easily. Years later, scorecards sleep in archives and trophies gather dust. But certain names still feel alive. Because some opponents do not just test your game, they stay with you forever.